I firmly believe that by highlighting the principles of diplomacy, which the Olympics teaches us to find the common ground, you start rooting for we all find the different people throughout the Olympics that you start rooting for. There's always, I like this person, I want this person to win, and you start rooting for them, and they're from all over the world, but it's cultivating mutual respect and navigating, the situations with civility and patience and respect. And it is all about respect. We don't have to like each other.
Marjorie Hope is all about facilitating positive connection and change. Why can't we all just get along? With an eye towards the Olympics, we tackle this and much more. Come join the conversation. Marjorie, welcome to Bump in the Road. I'm going to say, if you would, tell us your story, although your story's in another podcast episode, but bring people up to date in case they haven't heard that episode.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me today, Pat. And I really enjoy talking with you. And yeah, we've talked a little bit about this before, but in the spirit of unity and sportsmanship with the Olympics coming up, I think the big question is, can the Olympics, especially with everything going on in the world right now, can it unite us amidst all these global challenges that we have going on? And it's a big question because Olympics is about diplomacy and promoting connection, understanding each other, or trying to understand each other. But, through my experiences in diplomacy, and I know I talked a little bit about this before with you, the people I've met all over the world, people are nice. People are people. And you know what? I get this question sometimes. People will say, well, didn't you experience any, because you're American, or maybe anti-Semitism, and I'm like, no. But, and I say but, because there is a universal communicator. And once you learn that, the rest is easy. And that's a smile. When you go to another country, you need to say hello in their language. You're a guest in their home. Think of when you go to someone's house, nearby, you always are polite. You say hello and thank you. Well, the same thing if you travel, you need to say hello in their language, thank you in their language. I would also recommend one more thing. Where is the bathroom? Because it's very helpful. But I mean, seriously, there have been occasions where I kind of noticed, but I was able to change things. And quick story, I was in a pizza restaurant, a little place in Rome, and they wouldn't serve me. And I thought, well, they're busy. But so I went again up to the counter and said, excuse me. And then I realized they pretended they were still busy. So I thought, my Italian's not that good, but I can speak Spanish. So I asked them in Spanish, and all of a sudden it was, here's your pizza. Absolutely. Now, what I got from that was I didn't take it negatively. And that's another thing. You can't take these things negative, because who knows what experiences these people have had with Americans before. And not everybody watches TV all the time to see all these different types. If you go to Japan, for example, you have blonde hair and you're tall, you're a movie star. They will surround you and want your autograph, because they're not used to seeing tall people or blonde hair. It sounds funny, but it's really kind of, cool. When I went to Dubai and I met the Sheikh, which I believe we talked about that. And I said, why are people not quite so happy with me in town? And he said, it's just the older people that haven't had a lot of internet experience. Now, this particular man, he was in finance, and he said, I'm on the internet all day long. So, this is it was nothing to him. It was like an everyday experience dealing with Americans. But not everybody, when you travel, has had that experience. So, I think that the Olympics we've got countries all over the world with many different ideas of what, for example, Americans are like. So we need to have that universal communicator. We need to go in with a smile, a warm hello, a warm greeting. And I say learn 11 languages and say hello, just hello, the word hello, not the whole language. And you'll be ready for anything because people like to know that they're appreciated. And thank you. It always is nice to say thank you. But the world's a happy place. It's not as scary as what we're being told. What is scary is when you have fear, and that is what becomes a problem.
Well, fear, we were talking earlier, false evidence appearing real. Fear drives people. It's a very powerful emotion, and it is not an emotion that generally works in your favor.
Yeah. Fear starts from anxiety. Now, we all have anxiety. Anxiety, what does that mean? Well, could mean you wake up on a Monday morning and suddenly the butterflies in your stomach start growing because your whole day, you had the day off yesterday, Sunday, and now you have a whole day of work. What if, what if, what if, what if? What if I can't get it done? What if I don't do it right? What if I forgot something? What if I don't like it? The what ifs are going to make you have a what if a bad day. Take a deep breath, slow down, say to yourself, I'm going to do this. It will be okay. What I like to do when I drink my hot tea and I take my 3 deep breaths in the morning is I actually think about the day before, and one positive thing could be anything. You know what? If I could do that yesterday, I can do it today. And it may be a small positive thing, but when I started accidentally thinking about it that way, I started realizing how many positive things we really do accomplish. And it could be as simple as, I solved that problem with Amazon where they hadn't delivered my package.
Yeah.
So that's an anxiety-ridden starter, I should say. It's not a big deal, but you have anxiety because what if you didn't get the package they said was delivered? Well, that anxiety then leads you to the next problem of the day, and it builds on it, and suddenly you're into the next category, which is fear. And as you said it best, Pat, false evidence appearing real, because you're not having real fear and that someone's going to come in right then and there and something scary. But in your mind thinks that. Your mind thinks, that's it, I'm done, I'm gone. Again, you have to slow it down. Take a deep breath. We can all accomplish everything we want to accomplish, but we have to stay positive. And it's hard right now because the world is scary with a lot of things coming at us. You have to have faith. And remember, faith is bigger than fear. And that will help you get through too. Even if you just believe in yourself, there's no right way to do any of this. But again, believe that you can do it. Go back to when you were 1 or 2 years old. You had that faith because you learned how to walk. Every time you fell down, you got back up.
Absolutely. The other thing about fear is that you're living in your head, you're living in a future that doesn't exist and probably won't exist. And I think it speaks to the fact that you are no longer in the present moment. And I think many people go through their lives not in the present moment.
Right.
I think that is learning to be in the moment and aware is probably the most important mental discipline that you can develop. And it's not that hard. It is a practice. I mean, I access that through meditation. I like the mental discipline of learning to still your mind so it is quiet. Because if you can do that in meditation, it could be a 5-minute exercise. It doesn't have to take all day. It doesn't have to be off in the Tibetan mountains or anything like that. But that mental discipline of being present will revolutionize your life.
Well, drinking a hot beverage, if you don't have time, let's say you're in a busy work day, everybody might not have time to meditate, let's say, or do yoga, but you can grab a hot beverage, tea, coffee, or even hot water, and breathe in that steam. It will slow down your breathing. It has to, because you can't breathe it in otherwise. And as you take 3 deep breaths, breathing in the steam, you're going to be a different person when you stop with the anxiety. And what happens when we don't do this, and this anxiety is not only is it bad for our health, but then we tend to attach ourselves to something that we know isn't right. Maybe it's eating too much. Maybe it's listening to something or somebody that's telling us, I can fix this. I can do that. You have to believe in yourself. You know what's right and wrong. I do believe we all do. We know, and again, going back to when you were a little kid and you kept falling and then nobody told you it's going to be scary. You're going to get hurt. You might hurt your knees. They might bleed. Oh my goodness. Nobody told you that. And you just kept getting back up and you kept walking and then you were running. Well, it's the same thing with life. You can't let someone say, no, you can't do it. We're going to all die. We're all going. No, 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 no. Take a deep breath, big smile. There's the sun out there. There's a moon at night. We are so lucky in everyday life to be alive and be grateful and make your day the best that you can make it, whatever it is that you believe in. And we can all accomplish great things together because we get more together than you do by yourself.
Yeah. That speaks to autonomy of thought, certainly, and action. And before we came on, we were talking about that a little bit, about how people join groups and get swept away. If you would go through that again, because I think that was an incredibly powerful story, and we've all been there.
Well, we see it happening today. What happens is, again, we have a lot of changes in our world. I think they're great. There are amazing things happening, but it is scary to some people. They don't like the way these changes are happening. A lot of our basic everyday, even work schedules, the way we work, the things we do in our everyday life, friends that we know from, let's say, a Zoom meeting that we haven't even met in person. But these are positive things, but a lot of people are fearful of it. And so it's really just anxiety. They've led to this fear. But what happens is people grasp on to what they can to make them take that away, which is a Band-Aid. An example, social media. You start to think, oh, there's that group that belong. They think like me. Oh my goodness, the world is saved. I'm going to be a part of their group. So for a while, that might work. You see what they're saying. You're listening, you're talking, you're meeting some of them perhaps, until you see a red flag. And then you know it's not right. And I think that we touched on this before, but studies did show that you're not going to leave. You're not going to leave because you subconsciously think, I joined it. There must be something wrong with me if I joined this, and now I think it's wrong. And maybe it's just me. Maybe they don't really mean what they're saying. And look, you know what's right from wrong. Nasty is nasty. Nice is nice. Say your, please and thank yous. You know what to do. But yeah, this is what's disconnecting us. And so there is no fast food answer. Okay. Fast food is great when you have nothing to eat and you're running around all day and you have to grab something. That's all it's good for. It's not for communicating. It's not for interaction. It's not for really sitting down and thinking through what happened or discussions with anybody. And that's what's so important and missing in our life. And so when we have those anxieties and fears that grow with all of this, even just the media that comes at us, and remember, they get paid, guys. It's their job. And I call it entertainment. You may not like it, but you're watching it. Right? And you're listening to it because they've captured you and that's what they want. That's their job. They get paid to do that. You've got to take that information with a deep breath, take a step back and digest that information. And some of it is, of course, some truth to it, but most of it's not, because we're all going to be okay. We have to do it anyway. And yes, it can be scary. Every day can be fearful, in the way it was when you were a little kid and like you didn't want to go to school on the first day. You did it, you got through it, and it was okay. And we will all be okay.
Well, with the Olympics coming up, it's a great excuse for people to practice kindness and openness towards others. Do you know offhand, I was thinking about this as you were talking earlier, are there any countries that are being excluded from the Olympics this year?
I haven't heard of any this year. And, but we'll see. I mean, the Olympic trials, for example, in America just happened. Like the gymnastic team was just picked. And here's a great example. We have a gymnast called Simone Biles, who was in the last Olympics and was smart enough, brave enough, had the courage to say, I can't do this. And she actually stepped out. Now she's back in the Olympics. She should be praised. Amazing. Let's see what you can do. Go for it. But this is what I'm talking about, the mentality of something good that can be taken away. And we have to make sure we stay focused on the positive. All of these countries coming together will have different stories and different good, bad, and in between from their countries. And this is the time to say, no, we're on vacation from problems. We're now going to work together, which is what the Olympics was all about. It was bringing together, when they first started it, thousands of years ago, to bring together people from all over to compete for fun and excitement in the games. And of course, there's many games you can pick from. We have many different countries and many different Olympic events, but enjoy it and celebrate it, because that's what look, we only have one world. We have one planet we live in. That's it. It's called Earth. And if we don't take care of it and we don't take care of each other, we have nowhere else to go.
No, and with regard to the Olympics, we have this wonderful there are really positive aspects of the online world. There are pluses and minuses like everything, but one of the positive aspects is the information that's available to you. You can get 4 or 5 different perspectives on anything. And that actually, I think as you start getting these different stories about the same thing, it starts to break down the narrative, because you realize it's just a story.
Well, yeah, I firmly believe that by highlighting the principles of diplomacy, which the Olympics teaches us to find the common ground, you start rooting for we all find the different people throughout the Olympics that you start rooting for. There's always, I like this person, I want this person to win, and you start rooting for them, and they're from all over the world, but it's cultivating mutual respect and navigating, the situations with civility and patience and respect. And it is all about respect. We don't have to like each other. And when I say that to people, they're like, what? I'm like, no, you don't have to like, do you like everyone in your family? But you have to respect each other, and we have to respect one another. The most important thing we can do. After that, whatever you want to think to yourself is fine, but being respectful is what is so important. And that's what the Olympics is all about. It's being respectful, finding those principles of diplomacy, which actually can bridge the divides and the diversity and work towards connecting with each other.
I had an interesting conversation on another podcast recently where somebody had joined a communal living neighborhood. Now, that doesn't mean they're living in a commune. Everybody owned their own house, but they had to cooperate with each other over how the general neighborhood was run. And it was not smooth sailing. At first, people disagreed. They had real issues. They actually had to bring in experts to teach them how to navigate and how to talk to each other with respect in order to resolve certain issues. And I actually found that fascinating, because I think that those are skills that overall we don't really develop. And the idea behind this communal living situation was to be there for your neighbors. You didn't have to like everybody. You didn't have to be best friends. But if somebody needed a ride to the hospital, if somebody, you needed a cup of sugar, whatever it might be, somebody in that neighborhood is going to be able to help you out. And today, I don't think that's the norm at all. I've lived in numerous neighborhoods. You drive up, you go in the garage, the door comes down, and you may never even know your neighbors.
I call that the fast food theory, because in the old days, you had to be back, let's say 6:00 for dinner.
Yeah.
And then when dinner was over, there wasn't a lot to do. So you might go out on the porch or you might take a walk. You also had children that went to the same schools, because where else were they going to go to school? But you see, now our children go to all different schools: private, public, charter schools, homeschool, online schools. And you're so busy. We've got 2 parents working. If there's 2 parents, or maybe there's 1 parent, and it's not the same unit. But HOAs, okay, which have a lot of rules and can cause a lot of this, what you were talking about, the problems. But they like, we have Facebook in our community, which has actually been helpful because you need a cup of sugar or something. As an example, I've seen things like that. Hey, I've got company coming. Does anybody have any extra frozen vegetables I can get real quick? And I'll see people right back. Yeah, I have some. I'll bring some by real quick. And, I've also seen some negative stuff, but for the most part, I think, and I always have believed this, as humans, we do want to be helpful. We do want to belong. We do want to agree. I think this part about not knowing how to, like, I've heard of the neighborhoods around the country. There's several like that where they try to be, one big unit. It can work, but there has to be a very strong structure of leadership and meetings that listen and listen. Also, a strong set of rules when they move in, understanding where they're what they're going to be
Absolutely, yeah.
getting into. Like in my neighborhood, you couldn't paint your house with polka dots, for example, because we have an HOA, but it does tell you the colors that you can paint it. Now, if you don't like that, you're not going to move here because it's presented to you when you move in. But I'm just saying, I think that the biggest problem is this fast food theory that I talk about. In the 1950s, we were happy to join together as a group. There were many clubs. Children in the 50s, Pat, they actually weren't in all these organized activities, which is another problem. They, in the 50s, were sent, go outside and play. Now, when they went outside and played, there was no adult supervision. But you know what they did? They learned. They learned how to get along with each other. They learned what it was like to be bullied. They learned what it was like to not be liked or not be included in the game that day. But I'm not saying those are good things, but they're not bad things either, because then they grew up to be adults that understood and had more empathy and learned how to get along. So going back again to those 1950 days, those children learned more than our children today are so coddled in the fact that we put them in the group activities and everybody wins an award. Everybody gets the same, activity and the same award and the same, no matter what sport it is. Not that that's bad, but it's not really teaching the children anything.
Actually,
I used to say,
I'll argue it is bad. The reality of the world is sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and you need to experience that. You need to
yeah,
experience and develop the skills to be a gracious loser when that happens. Your turn will come another time. And I also think it pulls everything down to the lowest common denominator and homogenizes everybody. And that's not the way we are. We're all different.
right,
We all have different
right.
skills. And I think that people should be encouraged to shine with their own skills. And just because you shine doesn't mean somebody else doesn't. They're going to shine in a different area or a different way.
Yeah. It's about using and I talk about this in my book, using your differences to connect, because we all do have differences, no matter what they are, but find a way to connect with somebody. That's why I always say a smile is the first communicator. But these children, and I've actually been studying this back in the 50s, they actually did learn this, and they learned how to communicate with each other. See, our children today don't understand that. So what happens is they come out as being adults that have no idea. How do I communicate? Nobody's showing me. Nobody gave me a prize today. What happened? And they haven't learned those skills. And disappointment is really bad. Like, what do you mean I didn't get that? Whereas back in the 50s, they just said, go play. And that's it. And they
And there was
also
no
had,
social media, no electronic connection. It was
right,
all very human to
exactly.
human. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very innocent. They made up their own games. They made up their own hierarchy of needs that were all met. And everybody was called in at 6 o'clock to eat dinner. And I think what that did also was very important. It doesn't matter who's in your family. It doesn't matter if you have a large family, a small family. It doesn't matter if you have two mothers or two. It makes no difference. What matters is eating together. That was a time to cultivate and converse ideas and ways to establish ways that, well, especially talking about what was going on in the world. So actually, those kids came out knowing more about what was happening in the world than our children do today, because they just hear this social media stuff all the time, or they see it on the news if they're even watching it. But I think the discussions were so important, why these things were happening or what is happening. Can you discuss it? And then discussing things with your neighbors was important. And that's the biggest problem. We really don't communicate with each other in that respect.
No, and we jumped to conclusions very quickly. When I was traveling, I house sat, and in one particular place, they had a newspaper delivered every day. And I thought
Oh,
it was really kind of charming. And it reminded me of the days when the newspaper would be delivered, you'd read it, you'd take the day to talk to people and
right.
see some different sides of the equation. You might listen to the news at night. There were 3 stations you could listen to. And you'd come more slowly to a conclusion of some sort after much more consideration. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that rather than just jumping at whatever narrative is being fed to you that day.
Well, keep in mind also, back in those days, if there was a negative article, let's say that you did not, maybe it was political, whatever, what were you going to do about it? I mean, it was gone after that day. I mean, it was in the newspaper, it was gone. There was nobody to really put on social media. There wasn't any. There was no emails. That was it. It was like, okay, done, finish, move on. And so
Mhm.
they kind of learned that process of we keep moving forward. But what social media does, it takes that negativity that you saw and it keeps harping on it, keeps harping. Then the next person comes along and adds something to it. And because it worked for that person, till we've got this big mountain of negativity. And that's the only, social media can be nice. Don't get me wrong. It's great to put pictures and videos up and, oh, did you see the new baby and things like that. But you don't want to sit and just keep reading all of this news on social media because it does nothing to help you. It's only making you feel more aggravated, more stressful, and it disconnects you.
Yes, it's very disconnecting. I like Twitter a lot, actually. I've met really interesting, wonderful people through Twitter. So I tend to use it in a more positive way. I stay away from the negative threads because what you put into your mind and your life matters. And you have total control. Well, I won't say total control. You have a great deal of control over it. Do you choose to look for nice things? Do you choose to be creative? Do you choose to create a good future for yourself? You can do that. And it is a choice moment by moment, day by day. And I would urge people to start recognizing the power of your own choice in terms of what you allow into your life.
Yeah, and it's a matter of connecting with each other again through our differences. If somebody doesn't believe like you, that doesn't make them a bad
Yeah.
person, but you have to be able to say, okay, and believe me, I've had this happen to me where someone, we disagreed and they'd say, that's it, I'm not talking to you ever again anymore. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still here if you want to talk. But I think that's a learning process and that's an education process. And that's what I try to do is teach people, you don't have to like everybody. Okay, but let's be respectful to each other. Let's bring the respect back, bring the table of discussion back, that you don't just slam the table and walk away if it doesn't go your way. Smile and say, okay, well, that's what you believe. I don't believe that. But I'll tell you what, let's find something that we do believe in. And maybe it's chocolate. We all believe in the whole world had a piece of chocolate together. I think all our problems would be gone.
What will it take to bring greater respect and consideration for different points of view back into a civilized society? Well, the science
Well,
isn't civilized, but
yeah,
what will it take to create a civilized society?
it's education. It's teaching people because we've taught people. We've actually encouraged and rewarded people for negative behavior. And we need to start reversing that and teach people that's not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable when you were 5 years old, and it's not acceptable now. We don't need to degrade people. We don't need to call names. We don't need to be nasty. And it's just going back. It's so simple to please, thank you. And, I appreciate what you said, but let's be friends. Let's find that one thing that disconnected us, but find something that does connect us. And it is using your differences to connect, because like I said, maybe it is a piece of chocolate cake and that will connect the two of you. And you say, well, I'm not going to talk about that subject with that person, but gee, she is funny. I'm going to talk to her about that, you know. So you just find, but it's education, and it really is going back to square one with people.
Is there a way to introduce that on a broader scale, given the reach of social media?
I do that with America Connected, with my nonprofit, and we actually connect people around the world, people and nations, to be closer and to understand and to connect. And what that is we don't try to say, well, first of all, it's people are people. We're not trying to do governments. Okay, that's things like United Nations, NATO, World Health Organization. We're talking people are people. I don't know if I mentioned this, but in my book, I had 100 different countries write into me why we need diplomacy, why we need to get along. And every single one wrote, we need to get along to have peace and have a world. And not everybody had perfect English. Some were broken English, but it was amazing to me that my experiment did work, that we all do want the same things. And yes, after that, they may differ, and that's okay. It's okay to not like somebody. What you need to do is respect somebody. And that's just educating people back to, and it sounds so funny, back to the way you thought when you were a child. It's like, look, when you have a little kid and they start to make fun of someone or say something naughty, what do? You say, that's not right. That's not what we do. Please, make sure you say please, make sure you say thank you. We just have to go back to that.
Where can people reach you and learn more about your work?
Well, they can email me anytime at Marjorie Hope at itsmarjoriehope.com. My website is itsmarjoriehope.com. And basically that has everything, my books and America Connected. I've got 2 books on there. And one of them is about the Olympics, by the way, Carrie's Gold. About how if you work hard, you can attain your goals. And she's a little child that wants to be in the Olympics someday, but she does win a gold medal in her own level for her 9-year-old self, knowing that maybe someday if I keep working hard, I could be in the Olympics. And that's what life's all about. It's taking those aspirations that we have and learning that if we work hard enough, and we do a good job, we can get to where we want to be. And it may not always be the same place that you wanted to be 5 years ago, but you'll be in a better place wherever that might be.